Okay, well, we're here again with Peter Karran. I suppose we'll just jump straight into it. I've sort of lost track a little bit of where you're at with the children's services issue that we sort of touched upon last time I was here. So tell us where it's at the moment.
Well, it's at the moment we've got something like 20 odd people who've got concerns about file tapping, bad process, and a number of other issues that need to be addressed. It's funny, I've just written to the chief executive on the subject as far as the independent person that's supposed to be reviewing these cases. Obviously, I'm disappointed that we didn't have somebody that was totally independent. Let's hope that they prove me wrong, that we can actually do something in-house, because this is something that isn't a new issue.
Yeah, well, I think the one bit that I did catch was that Mr. Quayle basically questioned whether, sort of stated that he hadn't seen any evidence of it.
Well, I mean,
and is that sort of part of the...
The problem is, what do you class as evidence? I mean, do they have to sort of chain themselves to the Department of Health and Social Care and set themselves alight? I mean, it's just ridiculous. What is a complaint?
Yeah.
The point is that the issues that are brought, I mean, and I particularly give the timescale of one particular person who was well read, could take them on.
Yeah.
You know, there was 2 or 3 cases where the issues were brought up. But of course, you know, if you're not prepared to look, then there's none so blind as those that won't look. And I really took quite exception as far as Howard was concerned. I understand they've got to always defend the situation. But as far as I'm concerned, of what the documentation I saw and was passed on to Howard, it was quite alarming.
Well, this is, I suppose, this is the first question. Is there a set due process that should be there for that type of thing? Is there a sort of set procedure that somebody should be able to engage?
Well, the problem with most of these people have been told is, well, take us to law. Yeah. Well, the problem is, it's a bit like saying that see you in the Ritz. That most people can't afford to use the legal process. The situation is that, yes, I can bring you to people who have had horror stories. And what worries me is, and one of the problems you've got is, you know, you're going to see this in the House Keys on Tuesday, is the fact that we're cushioning all these questions up together, and instead of the speaker defending the right of the individual member, it's not my problem that there's 16 questions down from me and very few questions down from other people.
Going out with a bang, I heard it.
Well, no, I mean, I've always done that. I've been the unofficial ombudsman for the island. No matter how much it's detrimental to me and my career, if I think you've been unfairly treated, that is my moral duty and my oath of office, both as a Manxman and as a member of the House of Keys.
So there's no formal, I suppose, there's no formal procedure for anybody who finds himself in this position.
Well, the problem is that what you've got to first thing is when you get people who do give stuff, the minister has to accept that that's a complaint. And so what I hope it does do is it makes people talk about this issue. I thought this had been sorted out years ago. We had problems many years ago as far as childcare is concerned. And until these recent representations that were made to me, I thought they were isolated cases. Now there's something like well over 20 cases of individual people who have concerns as far as the due process is concerned.
And there could be more. So if you've got a collection of people now who've given you sort of their cases, where does it go from here?
Well, hopefully what we're going to do is we're going to, if the independent inspector thinks that he's not conflicted, I will then ask him whether he wants all the cases together. What we've got to do is not fall into the trap that seems to be a trap of government far too often, is the fact that we've got to be careful about data protection. We have to have their permission to use their data. This is all being done by a small number of people, because I just don't have the time, the resources in order to do that. So I am waiting. I've got a letter to go to Mr. Burnett about whether he's going to be the independent inspector, how he wants to address the issues of concern that have been brought to me. Obviously, I'm disappointed, but I've got to give them the benefit of the doubt, as it's the only show in town, and I was quite appalled with the different conflicts of interest of certain people. But then you can't even get your public accounts committee to be able to sit half the time.
That's the problem, really, for anybody who might be thinking of who might be in this situation and have not contacted you. A lot of people would be frightened to hand over that information because obviously there's a risk in handing over the information.
We've got to get away from that. I remember going into politics nearly 40 years ago. I talked to people when there was a real Labour Party, or people who actually went to jail for being a trade unionist. We have to stand up. There was an old dear who was an absolute asset to me, grumpy old git. But the point she said was, when good people go silent, evil rules. And I think that one of the problems has been over the last 15 years with this system of government is people have been saying to me, why bother? Why? Fill your boots, Pete. Get in there. And what we've got now is a situation where we've allowed this and the Brown administration to put this island into a hole.
So I suppose ultimately then, in essence, people have to place their faith in you, because if somebody has some information which they believe can prove that they've been in this situation, if that information is with you, you are the person who can ensure that something will happen.
Well, I can until September, because I can always ask questions and put it into the public domain. The problem is whether the media will pick it up, as far as that's concerned. But the situation is that I was disappointed because there were a number of other people who are members of Timberland who have got concerns. I hope this report won't be used as an excuse not to report before the general election that I wasn't aware of, that's supposed to be a standing committee of Timberland.
Okay, well, we'll reset the camera and go for another one. Right, so basically anybody who does have concerns about anything to do with files and children's services can still get in touch with you.
Absolutely, I hope people will get in touch with you, because I think we need to sort this out. I think, to be perfectly honest with you, a lot of members are going to be quite horrified if a fraction of what the complaints have been given to me turn out to be correct. One of the biggest problems we've got at the moment, James, is far too often there's a shoot the messenger and trying to brush it under the carpet. And unfortunately, we've got too many things that have been brushed under the carpet, which will trip up the next generation. So if they have got concerns, please give me a ring either on 200 or at peterkarran@gmail.com, which is in the front of the phone book. I hope people will make sure that we get this sorted out. This boil lands once and for all.
This is what you want to finish off before you leave.
Well, what I hope is the fact that one of the problems that we tried to do when we first set up social services was to actually emulate the old Children's Committee. And one of the concerns that we had was the issue was that they weren't prepared to do this in the orgasm of this new ministerial system, that they didn't want this. And I think we've proven that there is a need for a real what it will prove is the fact that we need a truly independent body to actually review childcare services like it used to be, with a representation from different organisations like it was originally.
So there is no independent body at the moment.
Well, the problem you've got is basically you've got a situation where you've got officials looking after officials. I mean, you make a complaint about a social worker, and the chief social worker makes an investigation. I mean,
It's kind of coming back to your ombudsman sort of point, really, isn't it?
Well, I mean, we did try from 1988 to get a proper ombudsman service, and we mustn't allow it to be one of their mates. What you need to do is you need to put it out to tender either to the Welsh Assembly, the Northern Irish Assembly, or some other, because no one person can be an ombudsman, because no one can be an expert on everything. And I think that's the way forward. There's great advantages being a small jurisdiction, and there's great disadvantages. And we have to accept sometimes we have to have things done outside the cabal of the present political setup.
Okay. Well, moving on then, there's another motion down for you this week on banking services. I mean, it's something that can you elaborate a bit on why you decided now was the time to put that?
Because when I'm getting representations from people like advocates that can't open clients' accounts on the island, there's something seriously wrong. It disappoints me that I found out that there already been private meetings about this issue with no ideas of how to deal with it. What alarms me even further is when I'm being told by certain people that the idea that there could be no independence as far as the island's concerned because we'd lose the 4 clearing banks. We need to be proactive. So this is why I've written to Lawrence Carey, because, I'm not saying he's going to be the great saviour for the economy, but there was some horrendous damage being done over the last decade from different ministers. But what I have wrote to him about is that we need to be talking to the likes of the Channel Islands about trying to find out whether we can find some way of creating a clearing bank for the 3 jurisdictions. I believe that in the likes of the Caribbean now, there is talk about trying to create a clearing bank for the Caribbean, because if we don't get good banking services, I'm afraid the whole international finance sector will wither on the vine. And I do hope that, we will see that Mr. Skelly will take it on with maturity. That's why I've even bothered writing the letter to Mr. Skelly, that this has to be done. What politicians need to realise is that we make the environment for the economy. Outside, commerce makes the money, but we make the environment. And if we don't sort out the banking situation for the island, this will create another toxic element that has already had the madness of the steam packet use agreement, the craziness of the likes of the MUA, where we now find that basically the people who were running the MUA are now running the MUA, and the people who actually did the sound business, thorough thinking as far as the Manx Water Authority was concerned, have been sidelined.
The thing with the banking, though, is that surely the reason that situation has come about is because of external pressure. The reason it's so difficult to open a bank account now is because of external pressure, isn't it? So it's a fine balancing act to get right.
It's not easy. I totally agree with you. Totally agree with you, James. It's not easy. My concern is we've got to come up with solutions. And when I'm told that this is not unique to small international finance sectors throughout the world, if we don't start working together, we're going to have a serious problem. This is still one of our major engines as far as the economy of Ireland is concerned. And that's why, in my opinion, I would hope that Minister Skelly will look at this issue of whether we can find a way forward in order that we can have a clearing bank that will be working for us. My concern with the likes of the Bell administration is the fact that I believe he's waltzing us over a cliff at the present time on a number of issues. And I hope I'm wrong, but if they're not careful and they can't get a buoyant economic position as far as the island is concerned, the whole independence and the whole structures of government will wither on the vine.
Well, some of that's going to be sort of played out shortly, isn't it, with this debate about the mid-term financial forecast?
Well, the problem you've got is, I left school at 15 with a dolphin certificate, and if I can see issues like how do you justify an 8% growth from the Hyman Robertson's report over the public sector pension?
Yeah.
The situation you've got is you can't have everybody in the Parliament in the government. Now, this is the problem you've got. You've got no scrutiny. the likes of the Public Accounts Committee, having them all on government departments, it's just a farce.
You think that's what's led to this situation of the question over the validity of that idea?
Well, I think the problem you've got at the moment is you've got a dishonest party system. It's a one-party state by patronage, and when you get ministers saying to you, "You'll get nothing done in your name," and the fact is, many of the time, the fact that I've been on one side of the corner of the room, they've come halfway over. They've actually achieved what I actually want. But the point is, we've got to have people in government and we're going to have people out of government actually providing that audit. And at the moment, that audit has not happened, apart from one or two of us who've tried to do it, with totally overwhelmed with the lack of resources.
What do you think's different about the pensions then? Because that's basically been stopped.
Look, the pension situation.
It's just because we're in the run up to election, and some people have thought, "Oh, we better."
Well, I think we should have done that at the beginning of this administration. I mean, we raised the issue about a money purchase scheme and a mirror scheme as far as financing the long-term liabilities. It has to be addressed. There is a moral obligation as a government. Promises made have to be kept. What concerns me at the moment is the total lack of any political thinking as far as the politicians is concerned. And I think far too often, apart from a few of us, basically the civil servants, the top civil servants, are developing the strategy, which is not in the common good of all.
Okay, well, we'll close the camera and reset it, and we'll go for another one.